Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with my card for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. And this time I wanted to use my Karin BRUSHMARKER Pros again, but I want to watercolor with some. And if you have the Karin BRUSHMARKER Pros and you don't have this Strathmore watercolor paper, I highly recommend it. It is a game changer. I've mentioned this in other videos using these markers. Literal game changer. They're great markers. I've used them in different ways. I'll have a link to my playlist using these markers at the end of this video. And yeah, there's something about this specific watercolor paper and specifically the Karin BRUSHMARKER Pros that they play very nicely together. I found with a lot of pretty much every other watercolor paper I've tried with these, they still work, but they don't move as much. And again, if you've got these markers and you don't have this paper, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you'll scribble the color and it's like the watercolor paper just like sucks in the color and it doesn't want to pull out as much and you're left with weird little like the lines you colored with. So anyway, I took that paper, that watercolor paper, I trimmed it down, put it in my MISTI, and I heat embossed this image from the Simon Says Stamp Black Eyed Susan's stamp set. This came out last year, and I've done a video using it, and also I'm pretty sure I used my Karin BRUSHMARKER Pros on that one, and I'll have a link to that at the end as well. And it's just been like floating around in my head again. I was like, I really like this set, and I was like, and I've wanted to do them in pink. I don't care if they're Black Eyed Susan's. When it comes to florals, do whatever you want. It just works. So I heat embossed the image with Simon's Cream embossing powder. It's a little more subtle than using like bright white. And then after I'd heat embossed it, I'm just using my markers and a water brush. Super simple. This part right here is in real time. Just again to show that I am not Superwoman. I do not color near as fast as I show in my videos. This actually didn't take very long. This is really simple. Again, if you've got these markers or any like watercolor type marker, something like this is really like just legit simple. It's like I scribble down a bit of the marker and then I pull it out with the watercolor brush, go on to the next section. That's it. I am not doing any special like layering or blending or anything. I used 3 markers and I had listed the 3 colors when I started coloring there. It was just gold, red lilac, and olive green. And that's it. And I had to stop myself because, you know, it's also my MO I like to, you know, layer, you know, go in and add even just a second layer. I stopped myself from doing that because I like the variation. And a lot of times I've said this, I have a super heavy hand with all the things. I think that is one of my little goals this year. It's like, just lighten up a little bit. You know, I make enough things that I don't need to put all of it onto one card every time. You know, it's like I can do cards and just space it all out. So anywho, I did the flower centers with the gold. I did the petals with that red lilac color. All of the greenery I'm doing with the olive green. And like, yeah, just simple. You don't have to use a water brush either with these. You can just use like a paintbrush and, you know, dip it in water, whatever works. I find with this, this is like my like holy grail combo specifically for the Karin BRUSHMARKER Pros is this Strathmore watercolor paper and then a water brush. And especially having images heat embossed, because I've said this in many videos, regardless of what I'm using, I like my images heat embossed because they give those raised edges. So it's like little bumper pads. So, you know, things aren't going where they're not supposed to. Just makes life easier and I don't have to worry about it so much, you know? So after I was done coloring, I let it dry, which didn't take very long at all. And then I used the coordinating wafer die to die cut this out. So I'm going to tape this in place with little bits of washi tape. Off camera, I had to use more washi tape because this is like some had like stuck to the side of my desk, you know, to reuse. It wasn't sticky anymore. Anyway, die cut the image. And then I pulled out my little Brutus Monroe sticky stick and stamp mat that I have the stick and stamp blending buddy stuck to. And it just has this A2 opening. So I put a piece of A2 white cardstock in there. And I'm using this stencil. This came in Simon's February 2023 card kit, which I did an unboxing video of. And I'd used this stencil and I had it sitting here and I was like, this is really cute. I want to use this on the background. So this is the Hearts and Stars stencil. And again, light, hand. This especially, this is something I have struggled with for years. However, the blending brushes entering the stamp world really changed that up. I used to struggle with blending, like getting that really soft blend. Like I can blend things, but getting that soft blend, like blending into white, is just But now with blending brushes, I can do it. It's just having a lighter hand. So that's what I did. I blended on 2 colors. I used Sunbeam and Simon's Field Positively Saturated inks. Just lightly blended those on the background. And then very, very lightly blended those inks again on top. Again, light, barely touching the cardstock. You know, I wanted it soft, you know, and just kind of more towards the center, and then just fades out. And I'm happy. I'm proud of myself this time because usually I go right to the edge and it's like 5 layers deep. Anyway, after I did that, I did very light splatter. Again, just light. That's why I didn't bring out my spot box. I know. I always tell everyone, do as I say, not as I do. But this is light splatter, not, you know, splatter the ever-living daylights out of it. So I used just the same inks, smushed them onto my glasswork surface there, picked it up with a wet fan brush, and just added a little bit of splatter. When everything was dry, with the stick and stamp mat or any sticky mat, it works better to bend them, kind of curl the mat back on itself to pop the cardstock off of the sticky mat, which is what I did. And then I used the Fancy Love wafer dies. This also comes in the February kit, just FYI. And I will have links to everything, as always, below the video. But I die cut my layers with that, and I was going to use Simon's Magenta glitter cardstock, which is gorgeous. But in real life, it looks fine in the video, but in real life, it was just way too much. Like, it just kind of overshadowed everything. So I just put that die cut back in the packaging. So next time I go to use it, I've got this pretty glittery die cut I can use. So I had die cut those. I'll get to that in a second. And then I wanted to add a companion little sentiment to it. So I pulled out the Love You greeting set. And there's that one little stamp that says Love You Always. And I just masked off the word love. I've shown in other videos, I have no problem cutting my sentiments apart. I get more use out of them that way. However, when there's sentiments that have coordinating wafer dies, I will pretty much never cut those apart, just because it could be more of a pain to reuse them down the road, you know, to get them lined up so you can die cut them with the coordinating wafer die. And with this, it was simple. Like, I masked off the word love, stamped the You Always with that same field ink, and then I die cut with one of Simon's Sentiment Label wafer dies. You can see it there at the top of the screen. And then I stacked my Fancy Love die cuts. These were die cut from scraps of Simon's dull pink cardstock. And I did 3 layers of that. And then the outline I had die cut with vellum. So I stacked layers together, stuck that to the vellum. And then for my inside part of the card, this is going to be a top folding A2 white note card. And I'm going to stamp that same Black Eyed Susan's image on the inside of the card. And I'm just going to use Simon's bubblegum ink, just a lighter pink, because I don't want it to be too dark, so I can easily write over this. So inked it up with that, stamp that onto the inside of the card, and then I'm going to stamp my favorite sentiment from this Love You greeting set. I've used this on so many cards lately, but I love it. It works for everything. So line that sentiment up, and I'm going to ink it up with that same field ink and stamp that onto the inside of the card. So once that's stamped, I'm going to start adhering everything together. So I'm going to adhere the card front panel to the card base with craft tacky glue, because that just gives me those, I always need it. I always need those couple seconds of wiggle room to get things lined up, because no matter what, I do not get things lined up straight anymore. So got that lined up on the card base. Then I'm going to adhere my florals, and I'd also die cut part of the scrap of the leftover piece from the watercolor paper. I die cut part of that Fancy Love sentiment there, just the kind of the last half of the word, so I can adhere this behind the die cut, just so that it's popped up a tiny little bit, because I'm adhering it on top of the actual floral that was die cut. So this just makes everything line up a little bit better. And then I put my adhesive on behind the die cut words so that it does not show through, because liquid adhesive does show through vellum. So got that adhered into place. And then the little sentiment strip, I'm just going to adhere that with a little bit of foam tape. This little waffle flower foam tape pack that I am loving. Love this. I can't believe how long I had that and didn't even know, that it was in my stash. One of my faves. Anyway, got that adhered in place, and then I pulled out another like oldie but goodie favorite that I have used on a bajillion videos. It's the Flickering Butterflies Wafer Die set from Simon. This came out years ago, and I've used it just all the time. It's so perfect. So I die cut scraps of vellum with those butterflies, and then just little dabs of glue. This is the only time I kind of break my rule, and I don't worry about the little bit of glue on it, because I just put just a little dab where the wings meet, where technically the body would be. I find it's not noticeable at all. If you find it is, you could put a little gem there, that would be fine, but I've never bothered. I just stick it down, and you can't really see it unless you look really closely because it's the tiniest dot of glue. So I adhered those. And then I added a little bit of bling because, of course, I'm using these Trinity Stamps Morganite Muse rhinestones, and the color was perfect and they're beautiful. So I kind of sprinkled those around the card, and then I'll adhere those into place with Craft Tacky Glue using my embellishment wand. And then I will pair this card with one of Simon's Dandelion yellow envelopes just to tie it all together. And then this card is complete. So, like I mentioned earlier, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I will have a link in that blog post to the Color Throwdown Challenge. It's open to everyone. It's just for fun, to get inspired. Always makes me think of using colors in different ways that, color combos I would never think of. So I'll have a link to that. And then, of course, a link to all the supplies I used. All that will be easy to find in the description box below the video if any of you are interested. And then I'll have a link to my couple of playlists at the end of the video. You guys can check those out if you're interested. And as always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos. Thumbs up, comment. It helps a ton. It really does. It tells the robot overlords you guys like what you're seeing. And yeah, I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Bye.